this is Christina Barr, and you're watching Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about this Nikki Haley appearance on The Breakfast Club. Actually, my sister told me about it this morning, and she hadn't watched it. She's wanted to let me know that it was on there, and some people started to put some clips out. And the clips, I don't think kind of do her justice to, but from some of the commentary that people are attaching to the clip. So I just decided to watch it, and there's about 10 minutes left, but overall, I think if she's playing to be a person in the middle, if she's running as an independent candidate to be elected by the American people and run things from the middle, I think she did a bang up job. Do I think she's a strong conservative Republican candidate? No, not really, but lots of things we could say there. So I'll just table it until we get to that segment. Also, on the show The Doctors, they had a woman, and I don't know if this is a new thing or not, but it's going viral. I saw it on TikTok, and I watched the clips on YouTube of it. But there was a woman who believed that she was supposed to be disabled, and so she wanted to be blind. So she found someone who would help her. She said it was a psychologist who, if she was, proven to be serious, that they would help her become blind. So her reasoning, I'll show you the TikTok that went viral. I'm not going to play the clip from YouTube because hopefully that's less likely for it to get flagged. The way that she explains it, it sounds very similar to other people who would do harm to their healthy body parts. But for some reason, we find a woman like her particularly disturbing as opposed to the gender stuff that's going on. So we'll talk about that and some interesting polls by Quinnipiac, I think that's how you say it, about who's gonna prevail in the election. We're so far out though, but there's a different mix between like Trump and Biden, Haley and Biden, throwing in RFK, which by the way, I think I've probably been saying JFK and RFK for I'm like, am I confusing the name sometimes? But it's RFK. But how he kind of disrupts the voting for the Republicans, and in situations where he would actually help Biden. So depending on the nominee. So I thought it was an interesting sort of poll. So I want to talk about it. But before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost a stream and run my website, all that stuff. If you like what I do here, you can give a donation on Facebook. You guys can send stars. For watching on YouTube, you guys can do super chats. I do read super chats as long as they're not super crazy or something like that. I will read them. If you're watching it back later, you guys can send super thanks. You guys can also check out different merch that we have available on the website. So go ahead and check out that stuff. I also have books. You guys can check my stuff out on Amazon. If you just search my name, it'll be easy enough to find me. But you can also just go to the merchandise page, and there's a banner will take you to my book website where you can learn more, because I have 17 books that are actually published. Anyway, I don't have a meme to laugh at with you guys today. We're gonna just go ahead and jump into the story. And the first one I want to cover is this story about this blind woman who was not born blind. So I'll play the TikTok, and then I'll explain the context that isn't in this TikTok, because it's like about a minute in here, but it was like two parts that you can find it on YouTube, and everyone seems to acknowledge that this is pretty disturbing, but it sounds very similar to situations that are very celebrated today. So let's watch.
have any regrets about taking your own vision or the process with which you did take your own vision?
I don't have any regrets taking my vision. I believe I should have been born blind, and I'm happy the way I am. I do have some regrets about the way I did it, but in the end, I'm happy the way I am.
Dr. Phil, with all due respect to Jewel, but I am having a really hard time sitting so close to someone who traumatized herself, who damaged herself. We took an oath in medicine to help people. We see horrible tragedies every single day as doctors, and people who would give anything to go back and restore their vision, their health. My heart is beating out of my chest. I can't even make sense of the emotions I'm feeling, because to hear someone say, I've always felt I should be blind. Well, I've always felt I should be the Queen of England, but I'm not going out to become the Queen of England.
So this woman, she said she believed, even from the time that she was 6 years old, that she should have been blind. There are people out there who are like transabled. They believe that they should have been born with some kind of disability. Okay. So she's one of those people, and she believes that she should have been blind. So she ended up finding other people online who also believe that they should be blind, who live their lives as if they are blind. Now, there's a difference in obviously being able to see and being blind. You don't know what it's actually like to face that reality unless you actually are within that reality. As the doctors are saying, they know people who lose their vision and they would give anything to have it back. And so that's why her experience is particularly disturbing to some of these people watching, these professionals. But she found a psychologist. She started to talk about how she actually wanted to be blind. And she found a psychologist who would actually help her become blind. They're like, well, if you're serious, like do the work, like research and stuff. So she starts researching on the best way to become blind and stuff. And so she gets like drain cleaner, and the psychologist or whoever helps put it in her eyes, and it eats through her eyeballs and permanently scars them and eats the corneas, etc. And so she goes to the doctors, and one of her eyes, she has like a prosthetic and stuff, and the doctors actually sent her to like a doctor to look at her eyes, and one of them was like, yeah, there's infection, you're gonna probably need a replacement on the prosthetic here. And he's just disturbed as well, again, because there's so many people who wouldn't want to be in this situation, and this person claims that they always wanted to be blind and actually hurt themselves to be blind. Okay. So the woman said, the doctor, the medical professional responded very passionately, was like, I may want to be the Queen of England, or may feel I'm the Queen of England, but I'm not going to go out and try to make myself the Queen of England. So my question is why isn't this same kind of energy given to a lot of people who feel a particular way about gender, that they were born in the wrong body? Again, this woman said that she felt this way since she was like 6 years old, and she found other people who were like her, and she took matters into her own hands. So if you're a male and you say that you were a girl, you can't possibly know that. That is your assertion, that you are assuming that you can even feel like a girl. But that's what you believe. It's not reality, but that's what you believe. And you seek out ways to meet a particular aesthetic. Perhaps you live your life at first as if you were a girl, and then you want to take matters into your own hand to try to make it a bit permanent. And you seek out a medical professional who will help you, and then you take drugs or whatever, and or then you might start removing parts of your body that were healthy. And in the case of a male, you might remove your junk. If you're a female trying to transition, you might get a hysterectomy. You might chop off your breasts, right? You might do a different kind of facial reconstruction. etc., to try to meet that sort of reality. And you will scar yourself, just like this woman decided to scar herself to achieve a goal of what she thought she was always meant to be. And that's what people do within the trans community as well. So why is it why is it that we have such a strong response that what this woman did to herself, her healthy body, some people would say she wasn't healthy because her weight and stuff, but her eyes were fine, right? She damaged them, and we find something particularly disturbing about that. But when it comes to Jazz Jennings or different folks, we're like, oh no, celebrate that. And people will say, well, no, there's a very big difference between this woman here and those different people who are trans. You're correct. There is a very big difference. This woman is now actually blind. She actually had an achievable goal. She doesn't need people to pretend that she's blind. She is blind. She doesn't need to police people's speech in order to live out a fantasy of being blind. She is blind. She is blind. I don't need people who don't like TERFs to say we need to, like with the Hershey's ad that came out. There was that one trans activist, and people found different tweets of them saying we have to make TERF's life miserable to basically push them into silence. With the what's the person with the millions of views? I talked about him all the time. The TikTok sensation. I can't think of his name. Dylan Mulvaney. Dylan Mulvaney saying he thought it should be illegal to write that he was a he, him, and stories over and over again in the media. You don't have to do something like that with her. This woman is actually blind. She literally blind herself. She does not require society to play pretend with her. Of course, what she did was cuckoo cuckoo. Of course, what she did was disturbing, and we all acknowledge that. So some people out there might be like, whatever. And you know what she said? It's her body. She said it's her choice. It's what she wanted to do. She said her family would no longer speak to her because she did this thing to herself. And so when the doctors were like, viewing her, they're like, I hear regret. Like, do you have regret? And she's like, I regret not having my family in my life, that they like left me. But she says she doesn't regret being blind. She doesn't regret being disabled. She doesn't regret harming herself. And yet we still feel like, I'm not saying there's not people out there who feel like, no, it's her body. She should totally been able to do it. And I don't know if people are pouring drain cleaner in their eye. I don't know how you, besides getting them some medical help for their mind, I don't know how much you really stop people from doing that, but you definitely shouldn't do it. We could start with scolding is good. But if we just applauded people and started giving her all sorts of adoration and praise for harming her eyes and treating her oh so special because she's blind. And we started seeing like a wave of other people doing the same thing. We would acknowledge that that's bad for society, I think, right? We would acknowledge it's kind of a bad thing and something that we shouldn't like uplift. There are lots of people who did harmful things to themselves that wasn't good, but they did it to feel good about themselves, or people who cut themselves to feel good about themselves. But there's, of course, all sorts of anguish and turmoil inside that they need to deal with, but they think that quick release of pain can help them in that moment. There are people who starve themselves, or people who are bulimic. And in Abigail Schreier's book, Irreversible Damage, she talks about those kinds of trends that girls would used to have. But nowadays you see a lot of young women turning to the gender craze and they're so desperate to not be women. It's really wild and really sad. But you can't tell me that what this woman did was so off the wall, but you cutting off your balls is so normal or acceptable. To achieve a goal you can't achieve. And if people won't accept you as yourself, or how you think yourself should be, how you're presenting yourself, you get all mad. I saw a video today of a man on a rugby team just slam a girl. She got back up and stuff, but I'm just like, these women are crazy playing rugby with a dude. But you got William/Leah Thomas, who swam on the team, and the girls, of course, were upset about that. I have an interview with Riley Gaines. If you haven't seen that interview, you can watch it, but she's talked a lot about it. Obviously, since then, has stood up for other women. But they want in on the sports. They want in the prison systems. I told a story some time ago about a man who was supposed to be on death row in California, but they're not too keen on that, especially people like Gavin Newsom and whatnot. So he got taken off death row. He's in a women's prison, and he killed his infant children. You got murderers and violent criminals who are going into women's prisons to be with the female population. And you can say, well, it's very dangerous for the male populations. Prison is dangerous. I think that's part of the incentive of not doing crime and going to prison. I'm not saying people should be assaulted and whatever in prison, but that's just kind of the reality of prison. But you think instead that the women who go to prison should be in particularly more danger with these violent criminals? Or you should get a pass as some kind of violent person to go in a woman's prison? They're sex segregated. There's no reason for you to be there. No reason for you to be there. No reason for you to be in a woman's sports either. If you want to live your life as a woman to the best of your ability, then do that. But you still doesn't mean you can be on a women's sports team, and no one should have to just pretend. So again, there's a big difference between this woman here, who said she felt like she was blind at 6 years old. That's what she said. She sought out other people, found other people like her, found a specialist or she said it was a psychologist or whatever, who would help her if she was serious. She did the research and they found out a good way to blind her, and they blinded her. So she did this disturbing thing to her healthy body, but she actually could achieve her goal. If you chop off your breast, that does not make you a man. And changing definitions or not being able to define words like what is a man and a woman doesn't really change the fact that you still are not a man or a woman. And it certainly won't change how people are supposed to respond to you or how we're entitled to respond to you. You still have to live with being an imposter. At least she's blind. At least she's blind. So if you found this story disturbing, why don't you find Jazz Jennings disturbing? Why don't you find other people who are chopping themselves up to pieces to appease how they think they're supposed to be disturbing? Because if you thought you were that way before, without surgery and without drugs, why do you need the surgery and the drugs? If you felt affirmed as a woman or as a man without playing operation. Some things to think about. Some things to think about. I think I'm going to put that on TikTok and risk my whole account. It's just sometimes I laugh at disturbing, uncomfortable things. It's just strange how the world is, I guess. Just so strange how the world is. Anyway, anyway, um so I watched Nikki Haley on the Breakfast Club. So today, and by the way, I'm not going to really play any clips from it because I don't feel like my live stream being interrupted today. From a we found this thing copywritten thing and everything will just be disrupted. I don't feel like going through that today. So sorry about that, but I will try to explain to the best of my ability the different conversations that I found interesting, and you're always welcome to go watch the whole thing yourself. Okay. So there's about 10 minutes left. So I didn't see the very end. The last 10 minutes, well, I don't know if this takes up the whole last 10 minutes, but I had to stop because I had to talk to you guys. The part where I stopped at was Charlemagne confronting her about her slavery answers. So I'm sure that'll be interesting. So I might mention it tomorrow when you guys see me again. But my sister's like, "Hey, Nikki Haley, just FYI, she called me this morning. She was on the Breakfast Club, and she's like, I didn't watch it, but I just want to let you know." I'm like, "Okay, thanks." And so I didn't know if I had any intention of really watching it, but I saw some people like posting clips. Excuse me. And so one person posted a clip, and they're like, Nikki Haley said Kamala Harris would send a chill up her spine, and then they're like, and then she starts explaining things about Obama, or that was kind of the caption. And I watched that clip, and she's talking about Obama, and I'm confused. I'm like, why is she is starting answering this question about Kamala Harris with talking about Obama so much? And then she got at the end of the clip, she mentions that Kamala lacks experience, and so all these people are like, she just doesn't like Kamala because she's black. And and they're like, yep, that's what it is, that's what it is, that's what it is. And so I didn't like, from just a snippet that I saw, I'm like, this is like, their questions are terrible, her response is terrible, etc. And then I'm just like, you know what, let me actually pump the brakes and go watch it myself. And then when I actually first started watching the everything in context, I ended up deleting my post because I thought it was an unfair analysis. And I thought within context, because what they left out was the fact that they asked her two questions, not just why she didn't like Kamala Harris, but they all asked what didn't she like about the Obama administration, and why would Kamala Harris send a chill down her spine or whatever? Why wouldn't she like her? So people are having those kinds of narratives. If I'm not too fond of Nikki Haley myself, I don't appreciate many times when I fumbled the ball. I don't appreciate times where she blatantly said something untrue about her record or someone else's record, and I've called that out. But to be frank, I thought this was a pretty good interview from Nikki Haley. And I think if she's really playing for the general election, and she's playing her role, her whole pitch is, I can pull traditional Republicans, I can pull, and I guess she just expects conservatives to come home or whatever. And I can pull moderates, and I can pull soft Dems. People don't want two 80-year-olds going back and forth at each other, and they want some kind of different choice. I am the different option. Yes, Trump won in Iowa, and yes, Trump won in New Hampshire, and I'm repeating some of her talking points that she reiterated on the show. Yes, he won there, but if you look at him as an incumbent, he got like 50% in Iowa, but just about 50% of people didn't pick him. If you look in New Hampshire, yes, he won in New Hampshire, but there was a lot of people who also didn't pick him. And if you're really viewing him as an incumbent, his numbers should be better, right? So that's her explanation. So the different stances that she has are still in our stance, but it's kind of soft. The most prominent example I could give is probably her abortion answer. And I'll table out. I'll mention that later. That was like the softest, most middle of the road. In my opinion, might as well say she's pro-choice, because basically her answer was kind of along the lines of, I'm personally pro-life. That's what a lot of people will say when I'm on a debate and like on TikTok or other people are debating. There are people who come into the live and they will say, I am personally pro-life, but I believe that other people should be able to make that decision. And she didn't say that I believe women should be able to have abortions or whatever, but basically she's like, if people decide that that's just what people decide, it's up to the states, that we're not doing anything. She didn't say she wouldn't do anything at a federal level, but she didn't say that she thought we should do something at the federal level. She said that that it's unrealistic that anything is going to be done at the federal level. So as far as like taking a true moral position on this topic, and I guess I'm not tabling and I'm going into it, she's not really taking a strong moral position on it at all. And she's just like, we shouldn't judge. It's very personal. And it is personal. And so could so is premeditated murder. Like if you go and you kill like your husband or something like that, or someone you know or whatever, like not all are random or something. So just because something is personal and people grieve or take long time to think about it and it's not willy-nilly for people, doesn't mean that it's a moral thing that we as a society should allow. And she's like, you'll never get judgment from me. Well, is the government's position that it's supposed to protect your inalienable rights or not? You know? So there are some judgments that we need to make about basic rights. So just kind of being so on the fence about it. Basically it's a fence sitter position. And she once again, when she said this at debates, she's like, the men are doing this all wrong, and can't we're not going to be able to pass anything, and we need to come to some kind of consensus. And she's like, can't we agree that we shouldn't have late term abortions? And the answer is no. People aren't agreeing to that. People aren't agreeing to that, because when you say we shouldn't have late term abortions, which that's a granted, like what are we talking, like 1.3% or something of the abortions. So if we're just like, okay, we're going to come to consensus and just only focus on the fact that we shouldn't have late term abortions, then like what, the 99% are just going to proceed as forward. I feel like the pro-life movement is losing on that issue if that's the case. But okay, if we focus on just late term or whatever, that's still, thousands of babies, perhaps 10,000 or so, like in the US, killed every year. And people on the Democrats will still say that a woman should be able to abort them. Like that is the position, is that it's the woman's choice. Like Beto O'Rourke was asked one time, I can't remember if this is when he was running for Senate or running for president. I don't think it was when he was running for governor. He's done a lot in the past couple of years. But someone said, hey, I was born on such and such date, basically the day before. Would you say that I had value and that my life was protected? And he was like, that's a decision that's up for your mother. And so like the day before, like it's up for grabs that you should be able to die or be killed. Gavin Newsom was pressed by Sean Hannity, and basically all these Democrats in positions of power will say it's the woman's choice. Even if you say, I don't think people should say up to the moment of birth kind of language, because people just don't believe that will happen. Okay. To nail them down quicker, you could just say, do you believe that a healthy woman should be able to abort a healthy, viable baby? And they will still say it's up to the woman to decide. It's the woman's choice. It's just up to her. Right. So at the end of the day, they don't want a compromise on that issue. And they do believe in late term abortion. And when you try to have that discussion with people who aren't necessarily in office or whatever, people have it in their minds that people only get late term because of really tragic situations. And that's not the case either. and you might say, well, there's a fetal abnormality. And it's like, okay, well, are we talking about the baby doesn't have a brain? Or are we talking about the fact that they maybe have like a foot that's like this, and you don't want a baby with a foot that needs to be amputated? There was a young woman in the UK, her doctor was pressuring her to abort that baby. She had the baby, and they amputated the foot, and now he lives a normal life. I mean, he has to put on a prosthetic when he goes and plays, but he's a very happy, beautiful baby boy. So when people are like, oh, there's these tragic circumstances, not all of them are tragic. And some women, pro-choice activists still argue that women should be able to do it late term because, well, what if they found out that they're pregnant late term or something? So they still want the door open. There was a woman, maybe it was in Wisconsin. It went viral, I think, last week. There was a student who said she didn't want to practice go to med school, whatever, in the state if they were going to have restrictions, including on like late term abortion, because she still felt that the option in the window should be open. And so pro-life people are just kind of like, this is how we're training our medical students coming up, that they don't even want to work here in these states if you can't have the option to abort healthy, viable babies. So Nikki Haley's like, well, can't we just all agree with it? Like it reminds me of John Kasich when his mentality in 2016, like, can't we all just get along? And I think like specifically like the first debate, they were talking about gay marriage and stuff. And then he's just like, can't we all get along? I'm like, there was a clerk who just got like arrested. So I'm pretty sure people would like some clarity on this issue and not just kind of, I don't know, shrug your shoulders kind of mentality. Wanting someone to lead if you're going to be a leader, So I think that it's a nice sentiment from Nikki Haley that like, can't we all just agree that this is wrong? But the truth is that no. Your colleagues from the other side of the aisle do not agree with that sentiment at all. And then she'll say, so can't we agree that you shouldn't abort a baby late term? And can't we agree that no woman should be prosecuted for the abortion? And I've been listening a lot to the abolitionists on this issue. And guys, I got to say, I don't think the pro-life opinion makes a lot of sense on this issue. Let me give you an example. So Nikki Haley believes that we should not have late-term abortion. Some months ago, there was a young woman who had an abortion. She was charged not for her abortion. She was charged for how she disposed of the body. Her mother was charged for helping her have the abortion. So the woman was like 29 weeks pregnant. I think that's what the AP, I think, reported. So the mother, that is a very developed baby, by the way, 29 weeks. It's crazy. So the mother got her the abortion pills, and she took them and she had an abortion. And so someone tipped off the police, and the police got Facebook Messenger stuff. They got a warrant. They didn't just, hack or something. And at first, when the story broke, they were trying to make the police seem like the bad guys because they got a warrant to look at the Facebook messages, not the fact that the baby was aborted at 29 weeks and stuff. They were very focused on the fact that the police went to Facebook like, this is what's going to happen to women in America. I'm like, when there's a crime, authorities will usually seek out a warrant. And if they do everything by the book, that's a fine thing that can happen. Don't be morons and write in chats things you don't want to end up as evidence for a crime, right? Just some advice there, life advice. You can take it to the bank. So the mother ended up being charged for the abortion, and the daughter wasn't charged for the abortion, but she was charged for how they handled the body. And so they claimed that she had miscarried the baby, but they buried the body. But at first they tried to burn it. So very disturbing story. Yet there were still people on the pro-choice side were trying to defend them and stuff. Now I did see pro-choice people where they're just like, man, that this ain't the story. Like this is not the story we want to defend, right? There were people who did defend it and was like, oh, this is so wrong. This mother is being charged, and she was charged a couple months, um, like 90 days, I think 90 days for burning her infant's body, not even charged for killing the baby. And the reason is there's like no pro-life laws like on the books that target the mother as the person who's committing the crime. They'll go after the provider for helping or whatever, for facilitating the abortion or whatever. They may go after the doctor, they may go after the manufacturer of the pills and whatnot, the distributors of the pills, but not the mother. Okay, so let's say that the mother wasn't the one who gave her the pills. Let's say that she just got it online. You can't trace who the URL or where it came from. Let's just say the daughter got the pills. And by the way, the Facebook messages said stuff like, I can't wait to get this thing out of me. I can't wait to wear jeans again. So let's say she got the pills, and let's say she didn't do it in quiet. Let's say she went to the police right in front of the sheriffs and guzzled the pills and said, I can't wait to wear jeans, and popped it in her mouth and just waited to abort right there. According to Nikki Haley, now this person would be pretty disturbed to do something like that, but according to Nikki Haley, even though late-term abortion is bad, there would be no legal repercussions for someone who would kill a 29-week baby at all. If she's a person who decided to do that. So even if you could have, she's like, we'll never get 60 Republicans in the Senate who are pro-life who would pass anything. Okay, let's say you did. Let's say you got all these pro-life legislators together, and they decided to do federal bans on abortion. But the caveat is that none of the laws would ever prosecute the women who actually have the abortions. So most of the abortions are done by the pill. So let's say women are getting the pills and they just blatantly do the abortions in front of everyone's face. Even if you passed those pro-life bills, it would basically be like you didn't do anything because they all have automatic immunity from killing the baby. So I understand this is a touchy kind of subject that I think, I don't know how many people have thought about it politically. I mean, have thought about it ethically or morally that much. I don't know how many. I understand like the political ramifications for discussing this and why someone like Nikki Haley wouldn't like that being on the books and how it might make her look or whatever. And I don't know if that's the case or not. I don't know how much she's really thought about like, oh gosh, does my position actually make sense? But I did watch, and I think I've mentioned this before, I watched the Abolitionist Rising page debate with, Joel Berry from the Babylon Bee about this topic. And Joel didn't make any sense. Like he laid out the pro-life position, and the more he talked, the more infantilizing and sexist he sounded. And the more pro-choice he actually sounded, the deeper they went into the conversation. And there was he'd use scripture, but there was like a misunderstanding or a twisting of scripture and stuff. And it just, it didn't make any sense, especially the more the abolitionist people talked about it. And so unsee it. And when I talk to different people about it, they're like, oh, actually that position makes sense. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I don't know. I recommend people look more into it and stuff, but I don't think the position makes a lot of sense, because at the end of the day, even if you could get all the pro-life laws passed, you would still technically, if all we had are the pills that people could access, and the women still choose to take them, you still are arguing for some kind of immunity for the women. Like, would clinics and stuff have to close down? And sure, but I guess you would just have a large market of women just using the pills. So I don't think her position there makes a lot of sense. But it sounds really good to people who are in the middle on the issue, to people who are Republican who are on the fence about the issue. And if you're rabid on the left about the issue, I don't know if anything she could have said really could have sounded that great about it. But that was the thing that kind of played, I think, the most to the middle. I thought an area where she didn't do very well was immigration. They asked about immigration because Charlemagne asked the question about Trump, the reports that he's telling Republicans not to take a deal because he wants to solve the problem. And so she condemned Trump. She's like, that's not obviously a good thing. I think this problem should be solved now. And she's like, Republicans need to do a deal, and they need to do didn't do it right or whatever. And she didn't it didn't seem like they knew a lot about what was actually in the deal or whatever. But what I would like Nikki Haley to do, I think it's fine to say, like, Republicans just need to do the right thing, and we shouldn't be thinking about the politics of what's going to happen maybe after January, 2025. We need to solve the problem now. America needs a problem solved now. But the important thing to do is to note that Joe Biden himself could do something about the border. He does not need Congress to pass something to undo the harm he's done, because he did not wait for Congress to pass something when he started rolling back Trump's orders on the border, when he decided to undo remain in Mexico and all that stuff. Day one, he started rolling stuff back on the border because they just had this mentality: Trump did it, so it's bad. Trump did it, so it's bad. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So what Nikki Haley should have done, when she was talking to Charlemagne, is say, Joe Biden is lying. He's a liar. And he is insulting your intelligence. He's insulting the intelligence of the voters every time he goes out there and he pretends like he has his hands tied. He does not. And he could do something about the border right now. And it is a false flag or whatever to look at the Republicans and blame them for not passing something. Even if they approve of more border agents, they're ushering them. Like, you go to church and the ushers usher you into your seat, or the movie ushers usher you into your seat. I don't think ushers really do that anymore in the theaters, but I guess if you go to an actual like theater and see a play or whatever, the ushers will do that. Not like in a movie, like like the Avengers or something. But that's basically what the Border Patrol is doing. They're allowing the cartel to have just drones fly overhead to track where they are, so they can pour people in, push the fentanyl into the country. They're just allowing that stuff to happen because their hands are tied. Biden has tied their hands, and having more babysitters or more ushers isn't going to solve the problem. He needs to change the directive of what they actually do. He needs to say, we are not accepting your asylum claims here on this soil. You need to remain in Mexico or we will detain you. Period. There is no more, you come here, we release you into America. That is not happening. You guys have taken advantage of my kindness, of the US's kindness, and we need to get back on track. Biden could do that. So Nikki Haley and every other Republican, I don't care how much you dislike Trump and you see a good time to dunk on him, because he might have said, I want to solve the problem. Don't give Joe Biden a win. It's a terrible deal. I don't care if he said that. I don't care if that is the truth. Tell the truth about Joe Biden. Play for your freaking team. Play for your country. What Joe Biden is doing is egregious. So I didn't like her answer on that. Didn't like her answer on that. But I did think she thoroughly, pretty much, like they'd ask her, why didn't you like Obama? And she would explain, like, well, he liked Iran too much, etc., blah blah blah. And she would explain some foreign policy stuff that I don't think they cared about too much. I don't think Charlemagne and them, they don't give the vibe that they care about those kind of substantive answers. A lot of things they want to talk about are racial, because she would start talking about that stuff. She's like, yeah, but the Republicans, they were just afraid of a black man, right? And she didn't do like amazing with those answers, but I don't think it was like absolutely terrible. They talked about race a lot. She talked about the Confederate flag, bringing it down. She talked about the shooting that happened in Carolina, and I thought that was a great segment. That was a great story with that background. So I think if people wanted to sit down and actually listen to Nikki Haley, who are kind of open-minded from the other side, they'd probably be like, oh, I like her more than I thought I did, and I hope that she wins over Biden. I mean, over Trump. When it comes to election time, I don't expect these people to either vote or vote for her. I don't expect that to happen. So I don't know what is the ultimate end goal for her going on shows like that. Was it a good use of her time? I don't know. Because I think a lot of the people she is trying to reach, I mean, there are people who will obviously sit and listen as a whole to the show, and so on, but not everybody will sit and watch it. And the kind of people who are cutting up the clips and distributing to the audience that she probably wants to reach are not going to be kind and show things in proper context. Like I already explained at the beginning of the story, when this segment, that I first started seeing things that were out of context. Again, they did talk about race quite a bit, an interesting conversation about America and is it a racist country and why do you guys say that? And she's dead set on the idea that you don't want to put that in a child's mind. And she said it okay. I think she could have probably said it in a more articulate kind of way, but you don't want to put that in a child's mind, and it will set them up for failure. And Charlemagne's thing is just like, no, I just see it as if you tell a child it's cold outside, you just tell them to put on a coat. And Nikki Haley's response is, no, you're telling them what to decide about the weather already or something. So I think Charlemagne had an interesting answer. Like you do want to prepare your children to be prepared for the world. But I think something that she could have explained is that you are framing a child's worldview, so they may see racism where racism isn't the explanation, isn't how people feel. Like maybe people are sneering at you, and you're like, oh, they must be racist, or maybe it's because they mistook you for someone else. Maybe it's because you kind of smell like, maybe there's a host of reasons why someone may not take kindly to you, or maybe someone may not like you, or whatever. But if you're expected to find racism in the hearts of everywhere you go, then you start using that as the excuse. I talked about this earlier this week, dealing with different people who are just trying to convince me that people view Black women as stupid. I'm like, that's not a stereotype. And the people started trying to say like, oh, well, they say this about me or whatever. And the more that they talked and different stuff came up, and I'm just like, are you sure that's just not a you problem? I didn't say that to him, but I'm just like as the conversations persisted, I'm like, do you really want to put that on Black women, or maybe you gave them the wrong kind of impression? or maybe it's because you're young, or maybe it's because you have pronouns in your bios or stuff like that. It's not automatically race, but when you train people to believe it's racism, then you don't actually want to solve real problems. The problem with so many people being focused on racism today is that people just consider it to basically be a catch-all. Like you'll have the schools that are like, oh, well, we want to get rid of standards because so many of the like the minority children aren't like their grades aren't where we want them to be. So we're just going to get rid of standards. Or you could look at the home life to see like, are they going home? Are their parents there to help them with their homework? Do they need some different tutoring? Or what, like you could get to the nitty gritty of why people aren't maybe doing the best, like and go from there. But just to be like, oh, we see a bunch of like minority scores not where we want them to be, so we're just gonna scrap standards. That's obviously a bad side effect of them trying to solve something that they feel is racial, when it might be like home life, it might be cultural, it could be whatever. It could be tools, it could be resources, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's racism. It's just a huge catch-all. So they mentioned systemic racism again, and as I'm listening to Charlemagne talk, I'm just like, you guys are talking about racism, but you guys are pretty racist. Like the way they talked to Larry Elder when he was on the Breakfast Club, you know, to question about like, oh, you're black, do you have a black barber and all this kind of stuff. Like they did stuff to question his blackness. Now Larry Elder, like, he schooled them, in my opinion. He had a great interview with them, and he turned it around on Charlemagne and mentioned how Joe Biden you know, said the "you ain't black" comment, and at the end of the day he swallowed Joe Biden and ended up supporting him or whatever. And so Larry Elder had a great moment. So a lot of people who will keep talking about racism and focusing on racism, they perpetuate racism. That I don't know if Charlemagne or other people would accept that, because people will say, well, because we don't have certain institutional power, then we can't actually be racist. That's malarkey. That's malarkey. And you know, I know plenty of black people who think other races, not just white people, are racist. So you can't just be like, well, we're the only ones who aren't. Bull crap. Bull crap. I know that's like something that people try to say in the woke world, but in our core, we know it's just not true. Anybody is capable of being racist. It is a choice, and you could choose to not be that way. So I overall thought it was an interesting conversation from Nikki Haley. I thought there were some good nuggets in there. I think how she had the space to kind of tell her stories. I don't know, lended a good light of her, or an interesting light of her from a perspective that maybe many other people who weren't exposed to her would see. Were there moments that definitely could have been better? Sure. But I think her running in the middle, trying to be that person that is safe for Democrats and Republicans, or is appealing to independents, I think she's in the bag for that. Do I think it's necessarily good for like conservatism itself that someone like Nikki Haley take the helm? I don't think so, because I don't think and she blatantly like will say like she had some post the other day that it was something like, we need to say what's right and wrong, and I thought that was so ironic, because that is not really her view. She'll keep saying things like, it's not my place to judge, it's not my place to judge. Let me see if I can find it. Maybe I bookmarked it, because sometimes I don't like to like stuff because I don't want people to think I like their comments. Yes. America can never be neutral between good and evil. We must pick a side. And so she had tweeted that out about Team Nikki Haley tweeted out that quote from Nikki Haley like 20 hours ago. If I had to guess, I don't know for sure the context, but if I had to take an educated guess, so forgive me if I'm wrong, I would assume that it's probably about war. It's probably about war. It's probably about the war in Ukraine. It's probably about Israel and Gaza. That's probably where she's like, America can't be neutral between good and evil. I could be wrong. I will take the L if I'm wrong. I think that's a pretty good guess. I don't know. I can try to figure it out, but I would assume, because she's basically talks about good and evil, protect democracy. It's so important to do this here, do that here, etc. with the stuff overseas. But when it comes to like other moral issues where we should have some kind of leadership, she's just like, well, you can't judge people. And it's my job to bring out the best in both worlds, the best in people. And it's not my place to judge. It's never my place to judge. So I don't think you can have that attitude of it's not my place to judge, yet we can't be neutral between good and evil. If you can determine what is good and evil, especially if it's like with warfare and other stuff like that, how can you not be able to say what is good and evil as far as like unaliving the preborn or something? And I'm not saying there's not circumstances where you can't be sympathetic to women who find themselves in those positions, but that just because you might be sympathetic to a situation doesn't mean that that gives you the go ahead to still do something that is like morally reprehensible. So and there's other things that she told stories about how she was like dealing with the legislature. She's like, I didn't want to judge them. I didn't want to judge them about the Confederate flag and how they felt about how it was tradition. And I didn't want to judge them. And it was just my role to bring them together. And I could understand her having to deal with the legislature with a situation like that was kind of sticky, where people obviously wanted to keep it up and stuff. But people do want to see kind of like moral judgments about good and evil on this stuff. And so I don't know how well people will or won't take those explanations that she gave, but again, I don't expect in the long run that those people will vote for Nikki Haley when push comes to shove. Example, there's a poll that came out by Quinnipiac, I think that's how you say it, about Trump and Biden. And so Biden is up 50% to Trump, 44% in a national poll. And Haley is up 47% and Biden has 42%. So Haley's pitch is Trump can't win, I can win. You should pick me or we're going to lose to Biden, right? And we shouldn't have two 80-year-old men running. So that's her pitch. So Biden, though, if you put RFK Jr. in there, in the mix, in like Stein and West, people who are running like, you know, in third parties, Biden gets 39%, Trump gets 37%, RFK gets 14%, West gets 3%, Stein gets 2%. So, you know, the margin of success for Biden shrinks. But I think RFK ultimately pulls more votes from Trump than Biden. Democrats are just way more militant about voting for the D. Biden against Haley, though, when you consider everyone else in, it seems that RFK is taking more votes from Haley. So Biden at that point gets 36%, so he's at +7, to Haley at 29%, and RFK Jr. is at 21%, and West is at 3%, Stein is at 2%. So what does that say? That well, there's going to be other people running in the race. RFK seems like he's pretty competent in running his race and getting his signatures and so on. The Libertarian Party, some people are trying to like get him in to like him be their nominee and then he'll be on the 50 state ballot. But he's obviously not a libertarian. So there's some libertarians who I saw online who are like, I will fight to make sure that doesn't happen, etc. Blah, blah, blah. So I think right now he's pretty content with going the route of just trying to get his name on every ballot. And I think he'll probably do pretty well, actually. And I think he'll probably kind of, I hate to make predictions because I don't like being wrong, but he might do better than some of these numbers right now are predicting right now. But if he's on the ballot, they consider him between a choice of Haley and Biden. They're going to pick RFK over Haley. So people in a matchup with Biden and Haley, they really don't want Biden, but I don't necessarily think they want her. I don't necessarily think they want her. So, she didn't get too hawkish on war when she talked to Charlemagne and stuff, which I don't think they'd be like rapidly too interested in that. Like when she said her whole like abortion segment, because they brought it up, they asked the question, it's a hot topic or whatever. She did her whole speech and they didn't have a word about it. They just went on to the next topic. I'm like, oh, I got nothing to say about that. So maybe they felt like she just covered it so thoroughly and they didn't have much to add, but they just really wanted to get on about different racial issues and stuff like that. So I don't think these people are going to vote for Haley. I don't think these people are going to vote for Haley. I think according to this poll, I guess my read is people really don't want Trump and people really don't want Biden and people don't like Haley and she's an alternative that people could live with. And at the end of the day, those people who are not party loyalists, who are just going to go home, those people who are in the middle, who are going to make or break this election, they still aren't crazy about her and they'd rather have RFK. And at that point, I would assume it's probably, I'd have to go deeper into the numbers, but is that Republicans who are being pulled into RFK who aren't too crazy about Haley? Probably because she comes off as a neocon to a lot of people. And that would hurt Republicans enough that Biden would take the victory. So RFK in a Biden-Trump matchup, I think hurts Trump more than Biden. But with him being there in a Biden-Haley matchup, he hurts Haley more than he hurts Biden. So RFK is going to be very interesting to see how he impacts the election if he ends up on all 50 states. We've talked a lot about who Trump might pick as a nominee. We have not speculated who RFK might pick as his VP nominee. And I have no idea. I think it would turn some heads though if he had Tulsi Gabbard. She's kind of a darling of the middle right now, or darling of the right. Not super conservatives, but some people who are like, oh, look at her. She's a former Dem who's now speaking the truth about gender and so on. So, anyway, just looking at some of your comments a little bit. So, yeah, it was an interesting interview. Like I said, I had like about 10 minutes left to watch with Nikki Haley, and I will. But I thought some of the commentary was unfair, so I just wanted to add my input about it. But again, at the end of the day, I don't think these people are going to go out and vote for her. So was it a waste of time? I don't know. Maybe. It depends who's deciding to pick it up and talk about it and how they take the clips and talk about it. I think like my platform isn't like huge or whatever, so my commentary, I guess hopefully I hope something goes viral or whatever. But if people could see like an even kind of stance about it, maybe that would help her. But I think most people who would pay any attention to it and clip it and talk about it are probably not going to be in her favor. There's going to be people like, oh my gosh, she got this stuff wrong about the racism. And she's just a typical Republican saying this or whatever, covering for America racism, blah, blah, blah. Or you're going to have people who are, pro Trump camp that are just mocking Haley, etc. So I don't think ultimately it was, I don't know, will probably help her. But anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website. You can, you can still send stars for watching. If you watch on Facebook, or you guys can send super thanks if you're on YouTube, but you guys can go to the website, just go to the donate page to support in that kind of way if you can. You guys can also check out different merch that we have available at blacktnews.com. Like we got black tea mug, we got different pro-life merch that you guys want to check out. So go ahead and look at the stuff. Also, I have 17 books that are published. If you guys are interested in any of them, you guys can just search me out on Amazon, search my name, or you can go to blacktnews.com and go to the merchandise page. There's a banner. It'll take you to my book website where you can learn more. God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.